Welcome to the Best Half Show. This is a show all about making the second half of your life 10 times better than your first. It's also still the number one standing podcast anywhere on the internet. Why? Because
sitting is the new cancer.
The new cancer. Oh, the new cancer. It's not even a new smoking. It's a new cancer. Yeah. And you know what's even worse than sitting? The
only thing worse that I can think of saying is loneliness.
Yeah, is sitting alone. Okay, sitting alone, which is probably often what you're doing when you're alone. And this is something that a lot of men don't really want to talk about. It's really uncool, I think, to be lonely. Yeah. We've never been more connected on social media, but we've never felt more lonely, more disconnected, and more lonely. It's a big problem. I was reading that in the UK, they actually have a minister of loneliness. Yeah. Because loneliness is so highly correlated with all kinds of other problems. So I think this is one of the things we want to talk about.
It's a serious problem, and I'll talk about, I struggled with it. And as recently, the CEO of Airbnb talked about it. And he talked about even him, a self-made billionaire, and how lonely he's become. And it is, we know from a health perspective, it's healthier to smoke 20 cigarettes a day than to be lonely. Like, think about that.
That's mind-blowing.
20 cigarettes a day. So what happened to me was when I got divorced, we had this custody with 1 week on, 1 week off. So Mark, I'm a really social guy, and I'd never been lonely. And all of a sudden, I have my first week with like no kids. There's no kids in the house. There's no dogs. Like, it's just quiet. And I was going crazy. So I'm again social guy. So I reached out to some of my best buddies, but it took 3 weeks to organize them just to come over for like a pizza night. Like, it was a simple thing, but everyone's so busy.
It's true.
But it took 3 weeks of organization to get them to come. We had a super fun night, but then the night it ended, I'm like, well, now what's going to happen? Like, what do I do now? So it was the first. I went deep on this for like a whole year. I started studying. I don't want to be lonely. Like, how do I deal with this? I've been through a sort of personal experience, and we'll talk more about it.
Yeah, well, and I'll learn from you. So it's something, honestly, I'm going through now, right? So I'm now at a point where, I've never really invested very much in having male friends. It's always been ever since I started my first scaled company. I mean, first order of business was the company. All my friends. I hired a lot of my friends. So, I hired them, and maybe that's one of the challenges that I've had is that it's so rare where I just would call someone to ask them how they're doing. For me, there's always been an angle.
Right.
It's a business. Yeah. I want to make money, and I think this is a failing of mine. It's something I really need to work on. Yeah. But, business was first, and then maybe to be honest, it probably came ahead of family, especially when I was in my 20s. Yeah. And then after that, a distant third was fitness. I gained a lot of weight when I was building my first company. And then kind of a distant fifth or something would be, having real good guy friends. And I think this is true for a lot of men because I've seen the statistics, right? And apparently you're doing great as a man if you're 50 and you have even like a couple of friends, like two.
Yes.
Or even one.
Yes.
Even one person that will be there for you if you really need him, and vice versa. Yeah. It's actually pretty rare.
So the reason I think I've worked hard at it my whole life, and again I've suffered through loneliness. So as a young child, around 10 years old, and my dad went through some health challenges. So he was away, and all of a sudden my mom somehow becomes a single mom. We moved into a new house. And what I saw is every night, all of her friends and family would come. They're like stripping, wallpaper and helping repaint the house. But as a 10-year-old, I'm watching this going, look at all these people. Like they're not like part of our immediate family, but they're coming every night after work, helping us fix up our house. That was for me, that was the reason, you've got to have friends. Because when things get bad in life, you have to have friends. So that was as a young boy, I realized that. But then I didn't have any problem being lonely because, I went to university, lived in residence, it was super fun. I started my first business. We had employees. I was too busy to be lonely. I got married, had kids, dogs. But then all of a sudden when you're divorced, everything changes. And you have this custody agreement. And all of a sudden, you're just by yourself. And you're like, whoa, what happened? Right. It's so bizarre, and that's when you have got to deal with some of these issues.
Yeah, well, that's good that you're kind of wired that way. In my case, and I think it's true of a lot of men, I kind of retreat into my work, I mean, into, I don't know, scrolling and reading stuff that's going on out there. Maybe dating, is a big one. But in terms of just building relationships, especially like same-sex relationships where there's no angle.
Right.
I'm not trying to, I don't see a potential business opportunity with this person.
Right.
It's just not something I've invested in. And it's something that I'm changing. I know I need to change because I know the stats, right? I want to invest in my health. I work so hard at my physical health, but in terms of our emotional and mental well-being, and then as you said, I mean, if it is like 20 cigarettes, this has to be a priority.
Yeah.
And so if it's a priority, then it means, we need metrics around it. We need processes around it. And so I'm doing that now.
It's super important. The more I study about health, and you too, I mean, we know sleep is important, we know exercise, eating well, but way in the top, like top 3 or top 4 is friends. Like it's super important. And so Friday night, I had a surprise birthday party for my dad. My dad turned 79. And 25 of his closest friends were there. These were friends, some of them like 40, 50, 60 years. And the bond they have, and he sees his friends, and my parents have their friends like 2-3 times a week. And I think it's why they're healthy and vibrant. Like my dad did, he showed me his step count was 26,000 steps. The morning of his birthday, I called him, hey Dad, how are you? He goes, I just did 11,000 steps. I'm gonna take Mom for another 11,000. But part of it is because he has a community and friendship. So I think it's important for so many reasons.
It's amazing at 79 because at that age, some of those friends are dead.
Right.
Right. I'll be honest. I would have a hard time getting 25 to a
It is hard. 25 friends is really hard, but they've spent a lifetime developing that.
Right.
So I think it's a good goal. Look, the reality is at our funeral, only 6 people are going to cry. So, I mean, there's a balance between trying to make everybody happy versus, like, I think about that a lot. Like at my funeral, 6 people, like, who are my 6? I really focus on the 6. But I do think friendship, it makes life more fun. I like traveling with friends. I like, it makes life just so much better. So I do think it's an important skill.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the things that I'm working on right now. And so maybe you could talk about maybe some of the things that have worked. So I have joined organizations that have been good before. So I was a member of YPO for a while. And
that must be great.
And it was great because you're in a forum with, 6, 7, 8 other guys. It doesn't have to be guys. There could be women in there. In my case, there were always men.
Yes.
And you really do bond together. We'd go on retreats together. We learned a lot about each other's lives. So YPO has this, whole process where they essentially teach men how to be more vulnerable with each other. It doesn't come naturally.
Yeah.
And you get to disclose more about what's happening in your life. And then when you go on retreats and you do fun things together, especially when you really know people at a deeper level, it really does encourage friendship. And what they say is a lot of people are closer to their forum mates than they are even to their own spouse. Like there are things that they can tell their forum mates. And absolutely, you should never tell your spouse. And I know, for example, you have that story where you told your, ex-wife about your business challenges.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she thinks of you differently.
Yeah.
But your forum mates, you can absolutely and should talk about your business challenges, and they're going to help you, solve that. So organizations is big. I joined an organization. It's kind of a modern YPO called Hampton. This is the same thing, and it's a global thing, and it's virtual, but they have a very vibrant Toronto chapter. And 3 weeks ago, I went. They had a poker tournament downtown.
Oh, fun!
Made a whole bunch of new friends.
That's amazing.
Playing poker. So that's one way to join organizations.
So what I in my year of going deep on this topic, I found that throughout history, men need to spend time with men. So if you're a caveman, you went hunting with men. And today when men go golfing or they go fishing and they do those trips, it's really important.
Right.
So men need to be with each other.
And that's what men do. Like men don't really go to a cafe and chit chat like women
do. They have to do something. Men have to do something.
And I got to give a shout out to the women because they're so good at this.
Yeah, it's natural.
It's natural. They're so good at building and maintaining relationships. And I think we men really need to learn from them.
Yeah.
At the same time, we're not going to go and spend 2 hours in a cafe and chit chat for a while. It's just not how we operate.
Yeah.
I went yesterday with a good friend and we worked out in the morning, and we would chit chat for like 8 seconds between sets. And it's just kind of what guys do, right?
Yeah.
Or in tennis where, after each game, you have 15 seconds of chit chat before you do your serving.
Right.
And that is, I think fitness and sports is really important.
It is.
And that might be one thing is to keep at your sports, learn new sports.
Right.
because each one is an opportunity to develop new connections with people.
But I think about your point about women are really good at this. So if I think about those 25 friends that came to my dad's surprise party, most of them are as a result of my mom. So my mom really coordinated the things with the couples. Now my dad has a group of like 6 or 7 guys that he meets at the coffee shop, and those are like all guys that he goes at 6 a.m, meets them at the coffee shop. But the vast majority of that group were relationships primarily because my mom was always fostering that. So it does it's a lot easier with a woman as a partner.
And that was the same thing with my parents also do have a vibrant social life. And again, it's like 80% my mom doing it. But my dad has some of his own friends for sure. But you're right. She's always been the one doing it. And that might be, something really to look for. I mean, if you're, looking for a mate, one of the things, chances are she is going to be the one who is going to, help you build your social life. And so you should probably pick one that's going to be a real asset to you in that way.
Yeah, one that's social, I think, is extroverted, is helpful. But when you read Think and Grow Rich, you read any of these books about, becoming successful, it does talk about community and having, like-minded people. And I think as entrepreneurs, we are lucky because we have, I was a member of tech for years, similar to YPO. I did strategic coach for years. And then you meet other entrepreneurs and you get to know on a personal level.
Well, if you like this episode, I would encourage you to hit the like button. Please make some comments. Like, we really want to meet some of you guys.
Yeah, listen, we'd love you to subscribe. Leave us some comments. And we are planning some pretty fun parties coming up. So maybe we'll invite you. So yeah, please subscribe, give us a comment. And we look forward to meeting you in person as well.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. And then you become friends with them. So I think as entrepreneurs, there are a lot of groups. There's even like conferences, like the Collision Conference, I think was last week in Toronto. There's conferences. So I think as entrepreneurs, there's a bunch of things that you can do. I know my friend Darren, that's our mutual friend now, he was part of our challenge. He joined the sailing club. And actually Andrew, another friend of ours, part of our 75-day challenge, also joined the sailing group. And like just finding like fun things to do, I think it's amazing. Like just finding groups and things to join.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the thing that I've got to get better at, and I think this is why I like processes and metrics. And that might seem ridiculous maybe to you or other people that are listening in, but I think if you're going to go and do anything, you need to think about how you're going to make it sort of convenient, make it work. And you need metrics. You need like targets. And it might sound ridiculous, like you're going to do that for friendships, but I am, right? Yeah. So I want at least every week that I am doing something with another guy and there is no angle.
Yeah. Smart.
I'm not there. I don't think that there's going to be money in the future. I don't see a potential business venture. It's just that I like his company and he likes my company, and that's it. And honestly, it's just not something that I've invested in the past.
No, metrics are important. So I've done this I told you, with my kids. So every vacation, we've always done it. We have a game in the morning. Who can make the most amount of friends? At the end of the day, we have dinner. It's like, oh, I met Billy or Johnny. And like, you have to report who you made friends with. And I think, look, you're on vacation anyway. Like, why not be social? But I agree. Having metrics around it, making it a game, it's fun because, look, it's the social things that bring the most joy. It makes it fun. And I think for men, it's super important. We live in a really feminized society, and the traditional media is feminizing us, and all this weird stuff's happening. This woke stuff is like, it's unbelievable.
We got to do an episode on that.
Yeah, so we will. But if men don't hang out together, like we can, it's really important, probably more important than ever.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, I'm fired up about it. And you're right. I feel, when do I feel best? If I'm doing healthy activities together with friends, it's awesome. There's really nothing that makes me happier.
And sometimes you got to create your own tribe. So I know we created 75-day challenge. It was cool because my challenge was like, everybody I knew was out drinking or eating too much, and I'm like, no, I want to get healthy, and I can't be healthy if I'm out late at night. I can't get healthy if I'm drinking alcohol. I can't get healthy if I'm just eating too much. Like, I just can't do that. So we created a new tribe, and we converted some of our old friends that became, hey, like I got friends that don't do cannabis anymore, don't drink alcohol anymore. And then think about some of the fun things we did when we went to Othership, and it's like you create your own tribe. Somebody's got to create your own group that doesn't exist.
Brilliant. Yeah, I think that's a brilliant thing that you did, right? Which is really like it's like hosting a party, right? And that's one thing that we had one scheduled. We're going to reschedule it, but hosting a party, which is similar to kind of what you do. You created a tribe, bringing people together like that. Doing it regularly, having a reputation for bringing people together, and being active about. Yeah. That's one of the things that I think my mom's done well, maybe yours too, is actively connecting people together.
Yes.
I'm good at it in a business context. Like I've been really good at matching, investors with entrepreneurs who need money and whatnot. But to be regularly connecting people that can benefit from that relationship, I mean, I think that's a great way to build real connections.
Let's talk about some other ways that people can meet, because it's really hard as an adult to make friends. So when we used to go to the office, Monday to Friday, every day, you would naturally become friends. Like it naturally happened. We saw it with our companies and it's very strong. But now with this remote work, it doesn't work anymore. Because let's say you're in the office Monday and then Thursday, but then your other friend was there Tuesday and Friday. You can be the same company, but you're not even seeing each other anymore. So that's a problem. Next, people aren't going to churches anymore. They're not going to synagogues, they're not part of bowling leagues anymore. So it's really, really hard. So we got to make an effort to create these social things now. It's now something that we actually have to do versus something it was just natural at work or natural when you're at university. It was super easy. But as an adult, you've actually got to make this a priority and spend the time to do it.
Yeah, no, it's hard. And one of the things that I learned the hard way too is that some of the people that I thought were friends really were just attracted to me, like especially when I was running my companies and the companies were crushing it.
Right.
And you really find out pretty quick who your real friends are.
Right.
Afterwards.
Yeah.
And so that also hit me hard. That you have some people who really are there for you during whether
the good
things
times
are thick and thick and thin, and then there's other times that are just there because that they see some benefit from you. So I think one of the things also is to talk about. So how do you get beneath the surface level, right? Which is we enjoy spending time together and whatnot. Again, one of the things I think that women are better at is getting that below the surface. So leaning into your vulnerability a little bit,
right, and
being willing to disclose some of the things that are going on in your life. Not too much, okay? We don't need to don't need to gush our emotions everywhere. It's not, that's not the way guys are wired. But to dip into it like 15%, like 15% more than normal.
Yeah. So what I found during COVID was a good example for me because I wanted to exercise and everything was closed. So I reached out to some guys that I hadn't really stayed in touch with that well, but they live not far from me. I said, hey guys, how about we meet, we go for a walk? So we're doing these walks, and it was freezing cold. But of course you share stories about struggles and things, and then you hear about their struggles, and it was really powerful. So I love the walking ones because you're getting some exercise and you're sharing some stories. But for me, once I identify people that I really value, and again, you gotta be careful with your friends because if they have a bad habit, you're very likely to get those bad habits. So I'm really careful who I hang out with because their negative habits can deeply affect you. So I try to find positive people that are really working hard at something, are passionate about something. But then what I do next is I try to go on a trip or something. Hey, I'm going to New York. I'm going to this. Hey, you guys want to come? That's super fun. And then you really could get to know people on a deeper level, I think.
Yeah. So I think that's a good idea. Doing activities together, which include trips and whatnot. That's not something I've done. I've always prioritized trips with families or trips with the girlfriend or something like that.
Yeah.
I've not thought about, hey, let's have 4 guys go somewhere. I mean, I did that through YPO. But
sometimes there's one guy, like my friend Dan Bauer. We've traveled all over the world together, and it's super fun. But when I was married, I didn't even talk to Dan. We totally disconnected. Totally disconnected. I became single, and I'm like, wow, Dan was really fun, and he hits all my criteria of guys I like to hang out with, and we have an amazing time. So every time I'm planning a trip, I'm like, hey, do you want to come? Or he'll invite me, and we have a great time together. So I think sometimes you may have had friends in the past that maybe while you're married, you kind of lost touch, but you want to reconnect.
Right. Let's talk about some of the, so we talked about a few things, join certain groups, or groups.
Yes.
Do things through sports, learn new hobbies, and activities.
And like a recent one, Mark, I told you about, I did the Second City comedy course. It was really fun. I'm really glad I did it. I don't know if I'm any funnier, but it was fun. But I met a group of people I never would have met. They're really
And have
really
any of them
fun.
become friends that you hang out with?
Not yet, but I can totally. But what happened was I was introduced to a bunch of people that I would never have met. It's totally out of my typical circle, and I think it's fun to do that. Not to have always friends that agree with you. Friends are just completely different, and I think that's super fun as well.
Yeah, no, I do resonate with that. I went to a Pride thing last night. It's not my typical group of people, but a lot of fun and great learning. And it's good to have different groups of people for sure.
And I think when you're doing things like working out, when we think about community, think about like Alcoholics Anonymous. Like they've got like a 12-step program. But if you just did like 11 and you missed one, which is the one is where you have to actually help somebody, you have to be somebody's sponsor. Like if you miss that one step, it doesn't work. So whether it's Weight Watchers or whatever, if you really want to build good habits, if you really want to take yourself there, there's got to be that social part. You need that other human being.
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, one of the most important lessons I've taken from Tony Robbins is that, whenever you're feeling a little depressed or you're procrastinating on something, one of his tips is reach out to somebody and help them. And it's honestly probably one of the most valuable things that I learned from him, because it really does work. I mean, it totally changes your mood, it changes your state, and now you've made someone else's life better. And you've improved your social network quite a lot.
I think we all know something about a particular topic and we can help somebody else with. And that makes you just feel good. When you can help somebody, give them some tips and advice. Like I know in the 75-day challenge, you were like the most active guy. But it's just fun to do that in everyday life. And I think on social media, we see conversations and we can jump in and we can help people. And I think that's a great way to connect with people. And then maybe it becomes a physical thing too, but just online, we can identify people that, hey, I can help them. I can solve that problem for them. I can give them some advice.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and that's something. So I think I'm a good networker. Like if you look at me on LinkedIn, I've got 12,000 connections, like pretty much whatever, I can connect almost anyone in the world. Hopefully I can still do that. I mean, I'm not a CEO of a company anymore, so I don't quite have the status or cred that I used to, but pretty much I can get to almost anybody.
Yeah.
But I've not done that as much in my personal life. I've done it in my business life. Like I've got all these connections, but I'm kind of like Chile. I'm like really long and thin in terms of my connections. Whereas if I were to die tomorrow, like would I have 6 people to cry at my funeral? Like I don't know, right? Yeah. Something I'd like to really work on. So I think applying that same discipline of proactively helping people and doing that in my personal life, and not just in my business life, I think is a good idea.
I think it's super fun. And I know you on I've seen you out in the wild, and you have no fear of just walking up to somebody, talking to somebody. Most people are just really afraid. So you've got no problem doing that. And I know I'll tell you a funny story about the Boulevard Club. So I met a really cool guy at the Boulevard Club, like a really cool guy, and we bonded. And I just think this guy was like the coolest guy I'd met at the Boulevard Club. And then that summer, my son Reed, my 14-year-old, gets this new friend named Carson. So we're out in the boat, and then we come back, we're in the boat, and all of a sudden Carson's like waving to Dad. And I'm like, hey, Carson's like waving at like my cool friend at the Boulevard Club. So it's really funny because I didn't know who Carson's dad was, and my son didn't know who his father was. But we both had bonded with Reed bonded with his son, I bonded with the dad. Yeah. It's kind of neat when that happens too. And I think encouraging our kids to be super friendly and outgoing, it's really cool.
It's huge. I mean, that's a great gift that you've given to them. Like extrovert. I mean, I have a lot of respect for introverts. They're great. Extroversion, there's a value in it. There's a lot of value in being able to talk to people, to engage people. So I think that's a great thing that you do.
Here's the downside of it, Mark. Let me an example. So tonight, Katie, she's 19, she's having a party at my house. Yeah. So I'm like, Katie, I just want like your like immediate friends. And I want a guest list. I don't want just the people. She's like, Dad, I'm like, please, like just, can we get it like to 25? She's like, Dad, I've been working on this. I can't get it down less than 50. I'm like, really? You got 50 friends? Yeah. Anyways, I guess at 19 or 20, that's what happens. But that's the only downside. You have to have big parties.
No, it's a downside. But you know what? Good for her. And hopefully she does a great job of keeping them. Yeah. Those university friends are really important. I think we talked about that in a previous episode, right? In terms of, advice to our teenage sons and daughters. Right. Take advantage of that university time, build those networks. And
keep in touch with them.
Yes.
And we've all made that. We've all made that mistake.
Yep.
And one of the research before our show today, I was researching ChatGPT, and I said, hey, ChatGPT, what do you recommend? It's like 10 really good steps. So one of them was it called it the 8-minute catch-up call. And I love that.
This sounds great.
Yeah. And I've been doing it naturally, but I'm like, it's so cool. Like one of my best friends is in Florida. His name is Bruce. And like I'll do the catch-up calls, and then even if I'm in the state of Florida, like I'll literally drive. Like my friends think I'm crazy, but they're like, Roman, why did you drive from like you're staying in Palm Beach, you drove all the way like 4 hours up here? I'm like, because I want to have dinner with my friend, right? Like I will make an effort. I'll drive 4 hours this way, 4 hours, because he's an important friend of mine. And I think so we have to have the catch-up calls, but when we can, we have to make the effort. We got to make the effort to go spend time with these guys.
Good for you. I mean, again, I'll be honest, it's just not something I've done. That's not something I've done. I really respect that this is something you would do, that you would drive 4 hours just to be with somebody. Right?
Yeah, just for dinner. And drive back.
That's something. So, for people, so in a way, I think you're a natural. I mean, even though you said you went through a period of loneliness, I still think you're a natural extrovert, you're a natural connector. You really enjoy those friendships, and sounds like you've been willing to put in that effort.
Right.
For those people like me and other people who are listening in who are not naturals.
Yeah.
This is not the natural thing we do. We need tricks. We need hacks in order to do that. So one thing, I love the 8-minute catch-up call because to me, that is something I can operationalize, right? So I have a list of things that I do every day. I meditate every day. I exercise every day. I weigh myself every day. I have to do at least 3 Pomodoros a day, which is 25 minutes of focused work. I've got to reach out to my kids, whatever it is. But you could have an 8-minute catch-up call as one of your to-do items, and you either tick that box or not in that day. And I mean, that's something that seems like, like from an Atomic Habits perspective, that's a really nice first step.
It's a really good one.
Anybody can do that.
And it makes you feel so good. When you catch up, even if you're having a down day, it's the best time to do it. And I'll just give you some other examples. I remember doing catch-up calls with one of my best friends. Hadn't seen him in 13 years. He moved to Tel Aviv. Yeah. But we had some catch-up calls routinely, and then he invited me to his daughter's wedding, and he was shocked that I'd show up at his daughter's wedding in Tel Aviv. And I've got another friend in New York, Michael, and he's a really cool guy. We don't see each other very often, but he invited me to his birthday party in Tuscany. And guess what? I'm going, and I'm going with my 14-year-old son. But sometimes you got to get on a plane and make the effort. And what's really cool is when you meet the right kind of friends, they connect you with others. I have a friend in Toronto. Actually, he lives in Barcelona. He visits in Toronto now because he used to live here. But if I'm with Terrence and I'll just, hey, Terrence, I'm in New York. He's like, oh, you've got to meet so-and-so. He's introduced me to the coolest people I've ever met. And just because Terrence is my friend, we've got a mutual friend. So it's a great way to meet other people as well.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds really good. Anything else on that list?
Look, I would say it's summertime. Go be social, have fun. And I think it helps your health and it helps your business as well.
Sounds good.
Enjoy your summer, everybody.